here.
I'd like to start on time.
Thank you.
So we're going to call the meeting of the Operations Committee, June 12th, 2023. This meeting is held at the District Education Services Center, Conference Room E, and is also remote hybrid conferencing. And on our conference today is Board Member Carlton Dallas, Committee Member Victor Ney. Don't see any other board members yet. So we did have a quorum with the two of us. And we will start with the first item on the, do we have any, what do you call it, public comments? Okay. So we'll start right away with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise with me. And I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I ask, first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Mr. Ney, would you make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I will second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2-0-1. The next item is the public comments. So we'll move on to the approval of the May 9th, 2023 committee meeting minutes. Mr. Ney, would you be willing to offer a motion?
So moved.
I will so second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hearing nothing. Opposed. Mr. Smith is still not with us. Mr. Campbell has joined us as well. Okay, I'd like, before we get started in business today, I would like people here in the boardroom to identify themselves. So we have Robin Cushenberry, of course, here. We have Mr. Otting. We have Rob. Let's start with you, Rob.
Rob Foreman,
Yeah.
Program Director.
And you, sir?
Carlos Cave, District Athlete here.
And you?
Cindy Phillips, Director of Fiscal Service.
Louis Acklin, Capital Projects Coordinator.
Ray Lund, Facilities and Operations.
Carol Crutchfield, Facilities and Operations.
Right.
Randy Majors, Facilities Manager.
Okay. We
And then you have people
and
online.
online, we have Victor Ney, Carlton Dallas, Eric
Clausen
Clausen.
with Beaufort County.
Beaufort County, and FIA,
Nick Philo with here, CBRE here.
CBRE Erie, okay, and Mr. Earl Campbell. All right. So the first item of business is sidewalk easement request for Red Cedar Elementary. Mr. Otting.
Yes, we have Mr. Clausen online with us, who's the Director of Engineering of Beaufort County. So I'm gonna, just to summarize, he had a request that you see there from a parent of Red Cedar about the sidewalk and requesting some improvement. And so now the county is proposed to do some improvements in that area. And with that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Clausen and let him take it from there. Eric?
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate the opportunity today to present this to you all. This is an improvement that the county has proposed for both Red Cedar as well as Box Elder. I was contacted by a parent earlier in this school year and had requested me to come out there and look at some safety concerns that she had for her child traveling to and from school along the sidewalk. As the sidewalk in the vicinity of Box Elder and Red Cedar, as that was widened out for turn lanes years ago, everything shifted except for the sidewalk. So that meant that the sidewalk was then placed on the backside of the curb. The concerned mother had stated that as children are traveling home, that a lot of times they'll lose a chain on a bicycle and they'll lay the bicycle over and it'll be pretty close to the edge of the road. After I had actually gone out there, and I went out there and observed this myself. After the week that I went out there, I actually had another parent contact me who stated that a child fell off of a bicycle and actually ended up in the road on Red Cedar. So again, that's a huge concern for us from a safety perspective. So to try to match what's already been done further down the road, the proposal would be to reconstruct the sidewalk to a 5-foot wide sidewalk with having it placed between 3 to 5 foot from the back of the curb to again provide that buffer between the edge of the sidewalk and the edge of the street. We would also propose to reconstruct the ADA ramps at the intersection on really all 3 of the ADA ramps on the west side of the road. So the one that would cross Red Cedar itself, and then the 2 that cross Box Elder. Again, they've got the pavers for the truncated domes currently out there. They're a little uneven, so I've got some concerns about those meeting the ADA requirements for the intersection. And then we would also continue the sidewalk down the Box Elder side. So again, to match in with the existing sidewalk a little bit further down, reconstruct the sidewalk along Box Elder to leave that 3 to 5 foot buffer area between the back of the curb and the beginning of the sidewalk. That reconstructs about 260 feet of sidewalk along Box Elder and about 525 feet along Red Cedar. This would all be done at the cost to the county. The only thing that we're asking for you is permission to, number 1, reconstruct the sidewalk, and number 2, for construction easement to be able to place that sidewalk, or to be able to construct the sidewalk along Red Cedar, which would take about a 10-foot construction easement, and about the same there on Box Elder. The county would then take on the maintenance of the new sidewalk along Red Cedar, and then the Beaufort County School District would maintain the sidewalk along Box Elder, as that is along a private road going to the school. Beyond that, that's really the project in a nutshell. We have talked with the contractor. We've gotten a price. This would be a field fit project that would start sometime in early July and be completed prior to school starting for the fall semester. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that y'all may have.
Do you have anything?
I fully support granting them an easement to do this work.
Mr. Nay, do you have a comment?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Mr. Campbell? You're muted, Earl. Mr. Campbell, you're muted. Okay, Mr. Dallas.
I'm in total support, Colonel and Mr. Nay and the others. It's a safety issue, and having been warned, I think we have a responsibility to try to protect our youngsters. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Campbell, you're still muted. Do you concur? Yeah, I got a nod, so I'm gonna say that's a concurrence.
That's a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. All right. I have no questions. I see we have a motion, recommended motion. And Mr. Nay, you're gonna put the motion up now. Would you be willing to make that motion?
I move that the Operations Committee recommend to the board the acceptance of the 10-foot construction easement located off the property lines of Box Elder and Red Cedar to the installation of sidewalk by Beaufort County.
Roger, and I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Clausen. I appreciate the excellent briefing.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. I will keep in contact with Mr. Otting and we'll on the progress on the project. But again, it will be done before school commences in the fall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Port Royal Elementary.
All right, I'm gonna be the one talking about this, and if you can pull the little picture up, Robin, that's on the memo. It's very similar, contacted by the town of Port Royal. They would like to add a sidewalk along 12th Street and add some parking at Red Cedar. Port Royal, sorry, thank you for correcting me. This information is just for your information because they just, for the most part, asking for the support because they're about to do engineering drawings on this and survey it. At this time, they don't know if they'll actually be on our property, but they just wanted to give us a notification that they'd like to do this work and it may impact our property. That sidewalk's gonna end up somewhere close to the property. So that's all that we're doing right now, just informing you and asking if there's any concern about this before the town of Port Royal continues on with their survey work to complete this sidewalk and parking along 12th Street.
So there's not a motion. Right now, it's just information for the committee.
Yes,
Okay,
but if anybody has any concerns, I'd like to hear that now.
sure. Mr. Dane, do you have any concerns?
I do not. I guess the only thing to be concerned is if they're not even going to be close to the property, I can't imagine. I mean, it's just nice they gave us the heads up. But is there any contingency if they do need to come on the property?
Well, if they're completely in the right of way, they'll be able to do the work they'll let us know. But if from their survey work, they just find that they do have to come on our property line or over our property, then they'll be requesting an easement for that work. Because they will need additional land to complete it. To me, it looks like they're not going to need it, but they're just in the beginning stages of getting it surveyed. And they don't know for certain right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's too early to tell. I'm in agreement with it. I'm good with it.
Okay. Mr. Campbell, do you have any comments? Okay, Mr. Dallas, do you have any issues?
None whatsoever, sir.
I attend a meeting at the Port Royal on 12th Street at St. Mark's Episcopal Church, which is right across the street there. This was mentioned to me at the meeting. I went down and walked along this area here across the street. I don't see any way it would adversely affect anything that we do there. In fact,
It's a good thing.
yeah, they're going through a massive effort throughout the town of Port Royal to pave streets and redo sidewalks. So I don't have any objection. And I don't think there's any other action other than to say that there is no committee objection to this project. You pass that along to Port Royal.
We'll do that.
We'll be ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Very good. We go to the next item on the agenda, and that's administrative regulations. SS 31, extra class activities and organizations. Who gets to talk about that? I'll bet you that is our athletic director.
So with SS 31, basically, we are updating that reg to reflect the already approved SS 57 with drug testing. Because in that reg that has been approved, SS 57, it speaks to extracurricular activities. This reg addresses extracurricular activities, thus it needed to be updated as well to reflect what has already been approved with the drug testing, random drug testing policy. So that is the update for SS 31 to bring it up to speed and accurately reflect what is being verbalized and communicated in 57.
And then the other part that we revised was to be in compliance with the current statutes and regs with respect to homeschool students' participation in charter school, participating in our programs. And we also have added all of our board coherent governance manual policies, and we've also added some additional statutes and federal laws that now are part of our extracurricular activities for students.
Okay. So let's this first part seems to be pretty much boilerplate. The extra class activities and organizations, there's very little change, with a little bit of formatting change. So,
And we tried Mr. Geyer for all of our administrative regulations because of coherence governance,
yes,
that they established superintendent's expectations, so
Yes.
that we're compliant
Yes.
with the law.
and I'm gonna go to this now.
Sure.
Okay. And if you can put, you got it up there on there, don't you?
Which one?
Yeah.
31.
And most of it, I didn't see an issue until we started talking about homeschool, student participation and interscholastic activities, charter school, student participation in extracurricular activities and eligibility. So this is all.
And we have one charter school that we sponsor in the that's
It's to that. So can you get a Reader's Digest condensed version of what we are saying here?
So what we did was we used the South Carolina School Board Association model policy. And then looked at the statute and the regulations and tried to be compliant with those things, because one of the things that's very helpful for us being a member of school boards is that they will give us a model policy to follow so that we're in compliance. So
Okay,
I mean, we just need to make sure that we offer that opportunity to our charter school students if they, so desire to be part of us. If they don't have it in their school, they don't have it at school or that particular activity.
so let me ask some questions. First of all, Mr. Nate, do you have any question?
No, I don't have any questions right now. I'm just taking it all in. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Campbell? I don't hear you. You're still muted. Okay, Mr. Dallas? Mr. Dallas is muted.
Okay, I lost my internet connection a few minutes, so I'm reading what's on the screen, and I think this is a bill or a requirement or a governmental consideration that was being discussed earlier. So what is this actually asking? The summary? I hate to impose on the committee, sir.
No, it's kind of the same question that I have. Basically, a student residing in Beaufort County School District eligible to attend schools, requirements for a full academic year prior to participating in interscholastic activity may be eligible to participate in interscholastic activities of the school where he or she is zoned to attend.
Yes.
So basically, it says for Riverview Charter School. And I guess for Bridges Charter School,
Yes. It would include.
that if they wish to participate in our athletic programs,
Yes,
any one of them, they are free to do so.
if it is not offered at.
If it's not offered at their school.
Yeah, if it's not offered.
Like since Riverview just goes into 8th grade.
Oh. Then this is the bill I saw. This is what I saw that was.
Is he gone?
No, he's still, did we lose you? I think we lost you, Mr. Dowell.
As I understand it, it's not just sports, it's any activities, correct? So anybody wanting to participate in band or thing, as long as the student is not considered ineligible, as I understand it. Charter student or homeschool student, as long as they're not considered ineligible, they're allowed to participate, correct?
As long as they meet eligibility criteria by Beaufort County Schools, they would be allowed to participate if that activity is not available or offered at their school. So for example, Bridges Prep does not have all those students that currently attend Bridges Prep They are allowed to participate in football back where they're brick and mortar residents, and where they would feed whatever public school they would feed into. They are allowed to participate in football back at that public school because football is not offered at Bridges.
Right, exactly. Thank you.
And it goes on to talk about membership in clubs and organizations as well. So if they had a robotics club and wanted to participate in robotics, they could do that.
And then we also, committee members under number 2, under clubs and organizations on page 4, that is part of our non-discrimination policy that the district has.
Yes,
So we need to add that.
yes, yeah, okay. Okay,
Mr. Dallas is back.
Mr.
Yeah,
Got you now.
I've changed location, so I think the connection will be a little bit better.
Okay,
If I may just share an opinion, the concern that I have with this particular, if it's already passed in legislation, and I've expressed it to my personal elected officials at the General Assembly level, is that it appears that public schools are really having some requirements that add cost to our administrative overhead. And that then we hear, or I hear from elected officials, that our cost structure is high. And so I've become very sensitive to requirements of public schools to provide services for non-public schools. If there's not going to be an absolutely hardcore parallel between the cost structure, the impact on public schools versus the cost structure impact on non-public schools. So my question is I guess this is a bill that has been passed and signed by the governor, is that correct?
That is correct. This for the high school league and high school league governance, this is law. So league we have simply aligned with what has already been dictated to us.
And that is what I suspected, Mr. Cave. So I would suggest that at some point within the Beaufort County School District organization, that we have a rigorous analysis of the cost that's imposed on public schools that to support non-public schools, because we get criticized for our administrative burden. And I think we need to have a precise integer that says this particular effort is costing the public schools this much. And it may be minimal or marginal most times, but I think it's something for us to begin tracking. So that's just an editorial, Mr. Chair.
no, that's very well said, and I totally agree with you on that. Football is expensive.
Yes.
The other sports, not so much, but football is, and some of the clubs are expensive. Robotics clubs can be expensive. Yes.
We looked at this on some of the fiscal impact statements that were requested earlier in the spring, and there were some requests as far as the athletic department, the club activity was not a piece of that.
Club activities.
I
Okay,
don't know if you remember that or not.
so
Yes.
We did look at that.
So we do need to capture that. Obviously, we have to obey the law, and we will do that, but we can go back to the legislature and say, well, thank you very much, but here's the cost.
Yes.
Okay,
Victor's hands up. Victor's hands up.
Victor?
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any data as to how many of these kids that meet this criteria in our system right now?
We do not have a number because it fluctuates year to year. It fluctuates by sport. And again, when you look at it in its totality, if that program again is not offered, Bridges is pretty much the only situation where we have students as well as our public charter that currently exists as part of Beaufort County Schools, where those students petition to participate in athletics back at what would be their zone public school. I can look at that and get that information to you. But I don't currently have any data reflecting what those numbers are and how many requests that we receive for actual participation in our public schools from homeschool and charter schools. I can get that number, but I don't currently have that number.
I think that's probably the best place to start. I mean, I see where Mr. Dallas is coming from, but I think, I mean, if one kid or even 5 kids want to participate in our football program, I mean, it's not like we have to start a football program for those 5 kids. They're just going to be integrated into the football team, which already has a football field, which already has a field house, which already has all the. So I don't see the administrative and or financial burden being that high. But again, I think the first place to start is at least tracking some data to say, how many of these kids are actually in our system. Thank you for clarifying. Appreciate you.
Mr. Chair, may I follow
Yes.
up on that? Mr. Nay has a good point. The incremental cost will probably be very small per student. However, I'm thinking down the road in conversations I've had, I've heard people say, well, there should be a certain amount of dollars per student, and that follows the student wherever it goes. And my retort to that was, that's fine, as long as the administrative burden goes with that student wherever they go. The current thinking among the elected officials I've had discussions with is not that attendant costs would follow the student. The current thinking is that attendant costs would remain with the public schools. And so I'm trying to get ahead of it by setting up a protocol to actually do the cost tracking. So when other items that are evidently under consideration come down the pike, it doesn't appear that we are responding to a specific proposal or what have you. We're just trying to be very methodical in capturing our inherent costs. So we can say, here's something that we've been tracking for a while. So I do not disagree with Mr. Nay that the incremental cost of this particular situation might not be that high, but I think it's good to start tracking it before we actually have to use the information so it doesn't appear tit for tat. Thank you.
I have one other, oh, go ahead.
So I can get this information to the board because those applications are being sent here and we have to approve and they're signed off on before that athlete, he or she participates. So that data, I can have that, get that compiled and sent to you.
One last thing I have before we move on to the drug testing is we do not have any obligation to provide accommodation for those kids for like practice times or other things. We set the practice time for our school. They have to meet, if they want to participate,
Yes.
they come to our practices when we schedule them, right?
We do not modify based on their schedule. They adjust to what is established by that school. And basically what we're guaranteeing is the ability for them to try out for that team.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, and there's no quota,
There's no
quota to make the team or anything like that. They gotta.
there is no
try out,
guarantee.
like
other than
everybody
try.
else.
Yes, yes,
Okay. I don't want to go down that slope.
yes.
All right. Okay, next item that's on here is the student subject to random drug testing. You put. There we go. So how about giving us a short and dirty on that?
So we've already approved SS 57. What this is simply doing is adding that the verbiage that has already been approved to SS 31 that speaks specifically to extracurricular. Because what you would have is SS 57 is mentioned in SS 36, which will be discussed next, and is also mentioned in SS 57. In both instances, it refers to extracurricular activities as well. But this AR speaks specifically to extracurricular activities. Thus, we needed to make sure that verbiage was there, and as it was not. It's referenced in other places, but the actual reg that speaks to it does not have the information.
So we're consistent.
We're consistent by adding this verbiage to this reg.
Okay.
And we have an agreement with the Bureau Hospital
Mhm.
for the drug testing. And so it's local.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Nay, any questions on this part?
Negative. Thank you.
Mr. Dallas or Mr.
None here, sir.
I have no other questions. I see you've updated all the statute.
Yes,
information.
and thank you for your comments. They're very helpful. We appreciate it.
Okay. So that's those two. 31, do we need a motion? We don't need a motion.
More information.
It's just information.
Okay, got it. So let's go to FS 36. Student athletics.
So in SS 36, again, there's a reg that already existed pertaining to student athletics. One of the biggest modifications that we needed to make there was in regards to the fact that the high school league with the academic piece, that portion has changed. The high school league now aligns 100% with the state Department of Education. That's that piece that you're looking at now. So that needed to be updated so that it accurately reflected what the current guidelines are for eligibility for any student in the state of South Carolina. The verbiage that was there previously did not reflect what is currently in use for determining of eligibility by the league.
Okay, there's an awful lot that has been added to this. And this comes right out of state statute.
Yes, this aligns with the verbiage that is currently in writing with the State Department of Education. So previously, the high school league's regs were a little more stringent, and thus you would have a kid that could appeal to the league. And then if they were denied, they could appeal to the State Department of Education. The league was put on notice by attorneys from the State Department of Education that you needed to align with what we have. Thus, the high school league is now aligned fully academically with the verbiage that is in existence with the State Department of Education. So if a kid wants to appeal anything academically, that appeal now will take place with the State Department of Education versus the South Carolina High School.
Okay. So can you tell us what changes that we've had to make from last year before this came out? What changes have we had to make in the eligibility?
So the biggest is that with the eligibility is now semester to semester. So in the past, a student that would participate at the beginning of the school year, you could use his entire accumulation of grades from the previous school year to determine fall eligibility. That is no longer the case.
So fall eligibility bases on their previous spring eligibility?
It now is based on previous spring eligibility, yes, to include possible grades during the summer, because you would have summer sessions. And then for the spring, you would then use first semester grades to determine eligibility for your spring sports.
And tell me what that change and what that means to you. Or
for the ADs, what we now have to do is go in and look at to see what are required courses. And it specifies a certain number. The high school leader has made it simple that when we go in, if a kid has passed 4 or more, then it automatically populates on the website. But if a kid has passed only 4, then we have to then see that they were what were out of that 4 courses, that they passed all of their required courses as a part of the 4 that are listed. So that has been a big adjustment for all ADs around the state of South Carolina, because this is the first year of doing that. In the past, we looked at Carnegie units passed. That was what the criteria, which Carnegie units equates to just courses passed. And that is no longer, it is still the case to an extent, but we're no longer looking at it from, again, first semester being the entire previous year. It is now semesters to semester. And that's been the biggest change with it. It also spells out, if you look at what a WF being withdrawn with failure, those things are also cleaned up as far as how to equate those when calculating grades for athletic records determining eligibility.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to Mr. Nate. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the academic requirements, so pardon my questions, but under letter A, academic requirement to participate in interscholastic activities, students in grades 9 through 12 must achieve overall passing average and either pass at least 4 academic courses, including each of the students to take that is required in graduation. The required courses are as follows. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of those. Is there no requirement to pass any core classes? Because if they don't have to pass 4, they can pass a foreign language, computer science, physical education, and I guess, like history, but they don't have to pass any of their English. They don't have to pass any math, any science. I mean, is this what's passed on from the state? Can we make it more stringent? Can we say that they have to pass at least 6?
You can make it more stringent, but this is the policy that the league has adopted that aligns 100% with the State Department of Education. So of course, the board always has that option. What I would say to you is, you really want to probably dive deeper into that piece if you want to make it more stringent. But I personally suggest that we align with what every other high school is aligning with as far as determining eligibility, so that our kids are operating on the same playing field as the kids in Orangeburg County and Charleston County and Horry County. So that's just giving that as information.
And the other thing is that with the individual graduation plan for each student, there are certain requirements that have to be met academically every year if you want to graduate on time. So you would still be needing to take a lot of these courses in order to fulfill the requirements of the plan.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I understand having to take them, yes, but this requires that they only have to pass 4 out of that list, and they can pass 4 of those things on the list, and none of them can be core classes. So they can fail every one of their Englishes, every one of their maths, every one of their sciences, and still be eligible.
So again, they wouldn't be eligible if they don't have a 2.0. We still have that policy that we are one of less than 3 districts in the state of South Carolina. So we have a buffer, and that buffer is a 2.0. So if you are taking 4 courses during a semester, which would equate to 8 credits earned because you're doing a year's work during a semester, if you were to not meet the threshold from an overall GPA by failing several courses, you still wouldn't be eligible.
Mr. Nay, give me a little background. We've had, since I've been on the board, the 2.0 requirement. And as was pointed out, most schools, districts in this state do not have an overall 2.0 requirement. We waived that for what, a year and a half?
With the COVID.
During
So
COVID.
what we did is put in it's a modification to give the kids an opportunity. So the 2.0 is never going away. What we've in essence done is a kid that met high school league standards with a passing average as deemed by the high school league of a 1.0. If a kid fell below a 2.0, that kid still had an opportunity to, during the course of that season, to raise their GPA back above that 2.0 and then gain eligibility, but they will be monitored weekly. That is the only modification that we've made. I actually met with ISD about that, and they are going to be presenting that to this group at some point as well. What we did to give kids a chance, we had a hard line drawn in the sand. Now they actually have a chance if they don't meet that 2.0 threshold to work, get above that 2.0, and then they have to maintain it, and they're checked, monitored weekly. If they fail, it's just like in the injury, they're out for that week. They have that week to try to recover and increase that grade. And if that doesn't occur, then they will remain ineligible until that occurs. That is only for kids that potentially could or desire to participate in the sport and they don't meet that initial 2.0 threshold. They're just given a chance to improve your grades. If you do what you're supposed to do, we're also going to provide assistance. Once you meet that threshold, we're going to allow you to begin to become an active participant, participate in competitions. As it stands right now, that was the change made during COVID because we had so many kids that struggled. But we found that it has been beneficial because kids now don't have that line drawn in the sand. They have an opportunity. You know, I didn't do well, but if I buckle down, if I receive the help that's there, I still have a chance to participate, and it's worked well because we have several kids that have been right there at 1.9, 1.8, and now they were kind of outcast because they couldn't play. They're now able to, with assistance, get their grade above that 2.0 and then begin to play. So the 2.0 piece is still a requirement, which makes us unique, again, to other districts in the state of South Carolina.
Thank you for clarifying. No other comments.
Mr. Dallas, do you have anything?
Yeah, I actually am where Mr. Nay is. School districts were created for a fundamental reason, is to educate students, not for them to play athletics, and I played athletics. But having the standards forced, you know, all of us at that period of time, which granted was 50 years ago, but it forced all of us to pay attention in the classes. And I am concerned about a decline in expectations of our students, because I think that spreads through the society. And so I think if this is law, and we have basically been strongly encouraged by the legal apparatus of the State Department of Education, maybe there's nothing we can do about it. But I do think that it is worthy of being discussed with our legislative effort committee and see if we can't become more proactive. I don't see anything wrong with us being one of 3 districts that has a 2.0 requirement. I'm proud of that. And I think our kids will, you know, tend to measure up. But I think that slide down that slope of, you know, lower and lower standards is a very, very insidious route to take. So I understand maybe nothing we can do about it now, but I hope we can have a more aggressive lobbying policy in support of standards and not compare ourselves to, you know, districts that are very different from us in many ways. They're similar in some ways, but compare ourselves to the top 3 districts in the state and let that drive our performance. Thank you.
Okay. Is Earl still on? Mr. Campbell? Okay. This is another work session, and the next one as well, student misconduct. We could spend all our time on these 2 topics today. I think as far as this committee is concerned, you've given us a lot of information. I think that it's worth more discussion, and mostly in the discipline, piece. But I will make sure that this is listed as a work session
To discuss student misconduct and
student misconduct and a discussion on eligibility.
Okay,
Okay. All right.
and sir,
Go ahead.
I just did one other comment. On page 9, concussion protocol.
Concussion protocol.
Yes, sir, there's a statute that requires this protocol, and I wanted to thank Mr. Haley for his diligence in making sure that we are compliant. This is a very important part of caring for our students. And there is a concussion handout that all parents have to review and they have to sign off on it.
Good.
And there's also, he has all kinds of training that you do, staff training on heat stress.
Yes,
Crowd manager, CPR, AED certified,
Yes.
heat illness, and I just, sudden cardiac arrest, those things are very important.
Mhm.
So, thank you.
good, good.
Mhm.
We had an issue with the band. Last knee injury. Okay. All right, we're gonna move. Construction update. Rob?
Very good. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to provide the executive construction update. Long lead times and inflationary cost increases do continue to be encountered. At the board meeting tomorrow, we've got 5 amendments coming in for board approval. 4 of those amendments require use of program contingency that's higher than what we forecasted in the mid-program reset version 2.0. Turner and Townsend Heery has completed a mid-program reset version 3.0. We finished that earlier this month, and good news is that the forecast is still showing that we can complete the remaining referendum scopes within the current total budget of $375,710,000. One of the things the mid-program reset version 3.0 pointed out is some challenges that we're seeing with cash flow, where we need to have funds returned from projects as they're closing out. And due to that, the mid-program reset 3.0 is proposing delaying the Bluffton Early Childhood Center project, as well as the Phase 2 Red Cedar Elementary project until Q4 of this year. And we're also looking to propose delaying the adult ed project until Q2 of 2024. What this accomplishes is giving us more time to bring back money from the remaining unused construction contingencies to allow us to move this forward. In the report presented, there are 5 yellow traffic lights that appear. May River High School, slide 13, that's just in there because the PM continues to address and manage the completion of the turf field and that first home football game on August 18th. Bluffton ECC, slide 19, has the yellow flag for the postponed scope that I just mentioned. Red Cedar, slide 21, has the yellow flag for postponing the Phase 2 scope that I mentioned. And we have 2 yellow lights coming in from 8% capital improvement projects. Buford Middle School, slide 43. The HVAC equipment has experienced some manufacturing delays, and that equipment is scheduled to arrive in the fall of this year. And at JJ Davis ECC, slide 61, the HVAC replacement, that equipment is scheduled to arrive late July. For St. Helena Elementary School, the gym entry canopy, slide 56, the existing canopy demolition is now complete. Site preparation is ongoing, and the canopy materials are scheduled to arrive late this month. And we're still on schedule to complete the new canopy on or before August 14th. ESSER updates. Bipolar ionization projects on slide 70, as well as the bottle filler projects on slide 71. All of those installations have been completed, and we're just going through the third-party inspections and final testing to take those across the finish lines. Project closeouts in FY 2019, 8%. We still have the one project that remains. FY 2020, there's 4 projects that remain. And from the referendum projects, so that's in our report, slide 74 to 76. There's 21 closeouts completed to date, and updates provided for the other ones that are listed. If you're also following along using the 519 financial monthly report, that's attachment 3 in our materials today. There's a total of 127 financial commitments that have been completed to date, where Lou has color-coded the individual lines to represent which ones have been completed. For the financial update on slide 78, these figures once again are through the end of May. Financial update is being reported with a green traffic light. The current referendum budget is $375,710,000. $310,000. Paid and committed total funds are $347,768,354, representing just under 93% of our total. Paid expenditures now total $235.4 million, representing 62.7%. Our remaining available funds, including contingency, total $27,941,646, roughly 7.44%. Contingency activity in May, we were able to sweep and return just a little bit more than $4 million to program contingency. And in the month of May, we used $2,179,315. With that, the contingency remaining at the end of May totals $9.8 million. And once again, the mid-program reset, as I mentioned earlier, still shows that we can complete the remaining scopes with the budget that we have. And just for following along, the amendments that are coming to the board tomorrow total $15 million, and we'll be using roughly $8 million of contingency. So that's going to take our remaining funds after that approval down to only $12.8 million that remains. So we're getting close to finishing the referendum. And in that 12.8, there's still 1.8 million of contingency. Community outreach, slide 85. We did hold the Bluffton High School ribbon cutting for the field house and weight room. That took place on June 1st. The Robert Smalls ribbon cutting is now scheduled to take place on August 7th at 3 p.m. Battery Creek High School ribbon cutting scheduled to take place on August 25th. That time will take place with the board workshop and that work session that's being coordinated. And then the Hilton Head Island Middle School ribbon cutting scheduled to take place on August 30th at 1 p.m. And the last update is for request for proposals and request for qualifications. RFP 23-009, that's for the roofing services. The selection committee has met and selected all three firms that responded to the RFP. AIA agreements will be prepared and routed this month for execution. This concludes my executive construction update. See if there's any questions.
Mr. Nay?
No questions. Thank you so much for your effort. I appreciate you.
Mr. Dallas?
I would just like to say to Mr. Otting and Mr. Corbin and the rest of the team, Mr. Lawton and Ms. Crutchfield and others, masterful management of the contingency fund to have 1.8 million cover left at this particular time. So hopefully there are no surprises, but well done so far, folks.
Thanks, sir.
Anybody else? Okay. I'm not happy, and I'll tell you why. Delaying projects because we're waiting on contingency because the people won't get their invoices in is unacceptable. You got to understand, we have a political process. We got a new referendum for $420 million that we have to pass. And come October, I need to go around and tell everybody that we're doing what you approved for us to do. And we're talking about delaying projects because we're not sure that we have the cash to go ahead and start them, to have them on the way. I want to have in October to be able to say, we've got everything on track. Everything started, at least. I would like to say we have everything finished. We don't. But because we don't have people putting in their invoices is unacceptable. And I'm telling you right now, there's not going to be another major contract from this school district that doesn't have a date that says when they have to get their documents in for payment. It's unacceptable. Federal government doesn't do this. And this puts us in a bind politically. So I'm not happy. And I appreciate it. But I can say, you're saying I got $1.2 million, but yet I have not I got this many projects not closed out? Help me.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I knew you would be upset on hearing that. What I'll tell you is that the problem is, the money that we're gonna use for those projects is gonna come from the closeout this summer. So we have to wait on some projects that we are just now issuing, where we have, all those projects. How much are we coming forward with at the board meeting tomorrow night? Probably 10.
It's $15 million.
We're coming with $15 million worth of project. All of those have 5% contingency to them. And on average, we've returned a considerable amount of that contingency at every project. What we're trying, the needle we are trying to thread here is that we don't want to get to the end of the referendum and say having to cut scope or do something less, and then all of a sudden have $5 million left over at the end. It is a very difficult tightrope right now to balance. And we're gonna have a conversation with the Clock Financial Committee, kind of explain our game plan. But it's not about funds that we can't get. It's about projects that aren't done yet and won't be done until the end of this summer.
Right.
And so we won't get that money till say September. So we can't start those until we
I
know.
hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
But it's still, it doesn't, I gotta explain this to Joe, man on the street. And when he hears, well, we're gonna hold off on starting because we're not sure we're gonna get all the contingency. We don't know for exactly what contingency we're gonna get back. That puts Joe Sixpack saying, well, you guys are screwed up. And, I can try to use that explanation, and it just sounds like blowing smoke up their ass. Now, let me ask you this. We have a debt service.
If we could borrow from ourselves, we could start those.
That's what I'm thinking about doing.
That if we borrow.
Because we have a debt service fund balance. We have a surplus coming in revenue for our debt service this year. I really need you to go talk to Tanya and say, what about using that? So that we don't have to delay putting these contracts in.
And quite on, the only one that is somewhat is Bluffton ECC. Red Cedar, we are starting, we just phased it, we did 2 phases, so we're starting it. Yeah, and we may be delaying that second phase by say a month or 2, so it's really minor there. Bluffton ECC, we put up in, there's gonna be some other conversations about adult ed possibly. So really Bluffton ECC is the only one. If we borrowed from ourselves, let's just say, yes, we can start that.
See, that's why we have a fund balance.
But what our concern is, I didn't want to have money left over just sitting there at the end of this. That's what we're trying to.
I'm not worried about money left over.
Yeah.
Because we have enough things that, for example, the parking lot at Battery Creek High School. When everything is done and everything's closed out and we have some money left over, we can take care of the damage that we did to that parking lot during construction that we somehow didn't put in the original scope of work. So I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about slippage in schedule that I can't explain easily when I go out to Joe Sixpack and tell him about why you should vote for this next referendum, because we really managed the program very, very well. That's my problem. So I'd like you to get with Tanya.
I will do that, sir.
And look at that and see if we can say, this is how we're going to stay on schedule.
Yes, sir.
Man, it's politics, folks. I'm sorry, but it's politics. It's what we look like. We go out for more money. And I'm just telling you what I'm hearing when I'm going out and talking to the public about this.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I stepped out and I'm going to have to sign off. Excuse me, everyone, after this. But contingency and closeout of projects has been an ongoing issue. And I think there's something systemic at play. And I agree with you 1,000%. We need those projects closed out. I stepped out. I didn't hear that part. I heard about the contingency and came back in. But I think there needs to be a rigorous analysis of why that occurs. It does not occur everywhere. So there's something that is, some of them maybe motivation behind it, you know, maybe it's saving the money or whatever as expressed. But I totally agree with your passion, sir. And your comments are well deserved.
let's move on. Maintenance and custodial monthly update.
Yes, Randy Majors will be making that presentation. And this is our
First one.
Yes.
This is our first one.
So yes, last month, we, during the May Operations Committee, we presented the Quality Assurance Continuation Plan. So this will be the first response and results driven data that we're submitting tonight to the Operations Committee. The information in this report will be for the May period. So the first, just for time's sake, I'm going to kind of push through this pretty quickly. And then ask for questions. There'll be two sections. The first one will be the custodial update. The second section will be the maintenance update. And I'll have a breaking point at each one of those sections. So the first 2 pages, you're going to see these are the summary results for the spot inspection report that was completed. So some of the things I'd like to point out on this first page is the May 2023 spot inspections. Those are spot inspections that I personally completed month of May. And so those are the data results from that. And then that second section is the spot inspections that were completed by the HES area managers and district managers. HES currently has 5 area managers and 1 district manager. So those are the results from that. The second page, you'll see I wanted to provide the committee with a snapshot of when I do an inspection or when the area managers do inspections. What does that look like? How is it laid out? What information is provided in that inspection for that individual area that we're inspecting? This inspection software we're using does allow each inspector to go in and add comments for each individual item in an area, as well as upload pictures and then post a general comment to each inspection. One of the spot inspections that we completed that section for the month of May, we did have some caution lights. We had several inspections that came through that were under our 80% measure that we had established. And so those did qualify for re-inspections. So we did complete at 3 sites re-inspections. And then when the re-inspection occurred, we were able to evaluate it and the score was above an 80%. So those are your first 2 pages. So we'll move on.
It goes 1 to 5, is that right?
Yes.
1 to 5, 1 being the best.
No, 5 being the best.
5 being the best, 1 being the worst.
Yes.
Okay.
Page 3, we'll move on to the staffing percentages. So with that measure, we have school staffing levels less than 70% will require HES to respond with a corrective action plan. So as you can see here, we did have 1 school that was at a 67%. Those staffing levels were holding at a 78 a week prior to school being let out, which put them down to a 67%. HES is actively recruiting. They're doing recruitment ads and continuing to push efforts. For the summer, HES does move to a summer staffing schedule. They will support our schools that are currently holding summer school. So we'll have our custodial staff in those schools servicing But then once summer school ends at the end of June, then we'll see some movement with the custodial staff to allow for those deep cleaning efforts that we do. The next section of this page, you'll see recognizing success and rewards. That's our page 3 and 4 of this document. And that's really just to focus in on what we were able to accomplish in the month of May, as far as establishing the metrics for an inspection scale. You know, what am I looking at when I go in for an inspection? What areas am I inspecting? How am I grading it on a 1 to 5 scale? The images you see in page 3 are images, and it was kind of hard to see. You may not see that, but those are 2 areas that I took pictures of that I would give below a C. The first image is a window that you can just see. There's a lot of layering of dirt and buildup, and then the other section, the other picture is of an area that you could tell we had some friends in the corner, some cobwebs and bugs. Page 4 is just a continuation of things that we've accomplished through the month of May with having a district representative inspect and an HES managers inspect. There's a lot of value in that, primarily because I'm doing the majority of my inspections during the day. So you see different levels of cleaning service, whereas the area managers, they're doing them in the evening. So we've got a lot of coverage, a lot more coverage than we had before. So that's something I wanted to point out. The other thing is we were able to accomplish a lot more inspections in the month of May than we had originally intended. The initial measure was 4 locations, which roughly gave us about 20 spot inspections. And we were able to push 5 locations with 32 inspections on top of what HES was already doing. The last section on page 4, we want to bring up, HES is seeing the value in the district doing their inspections. And so in offering those incentives to their employees in the field, they are going to be looking at putting a bonus incentive plan in place for the upcoming fall school year. And that's going to put a lot of weight on the 5 inspections the district representative does. So that concludes the custodial piece. Are there any questions or clarification needed on that section?
Mr. Nay?
I have nothing. Thank you.
I have nothing on that. I think. Can we have this, is this part of the agenda for the next meeting?
It'll be in your committee report.
No, committee report.
I was gonna ask you what you wanted this meeting, what you want us to do at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think our meeting is, but I think I'll say is that we had a report. I think it looks like a good program. I think you're on track.
Okay.
And then at the next meeting afterwards,
You can have a representative.
we'd like you to come in and talk to give that presentation. Because that is of interest. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
All right.
The following section, so we'll go through this
Maintenance.
pretty quickly, is maintenance. So the first section of this maintenance update, we have 2 different periods that we wanted to give the committee members data on. The first section is just our work orders to date. We want to be consistent with our data, and when we do our semi-annual report, we present these numbers to the board and the committee members. The second section is what we accomplished or what maintenance accomplished in May of this year with work orders. The third section on that page, you'll see is specific to those craft categories that we've spoken about before. We talked about kind of trying to get in front of questions. So how we've structured these next 2 sections after your craft data is to pull out those 2 top numbered craft sections that have the most work orders, which the first one was HVAC and the second being plumbing.
Yeah.
And then we went a little bit further into that, hearing what committee members had asked us to provide before and really give y'all a good detailed look at, okay, this is the school that's having the most in that specific craft category. And this is kind of why. once we did the extra analysis of all those work orders, what's going on, right? So we went a little bit further to give y'all more information on what school for HVAC and plumbing is coming out to be the highest totals. So for HVAC, we've got Hilton Head Creative Arts, and as you can see there, we had a lot of system resets as well as drain line issues. And we'll move on to the top of page 6. That caution light was for plumbing, and that was Hilton Head High School, primarily drain lines and toilets clogging in those areas. We did, maintenance was able to do a blitz in May. They did it May 5th at Hilton Head High School. So you'll see the blitz spotlight has the work order data for that. And you can see in that craft section of the Hilton Head school, kind of some of those challenges that we've been working through there at that location. The latter part of the page 6, you'll see the next 2 pages and the last 2 pages of the report. We're just recognizing success with maintenance. There's a lot that goes on at the end of the year. And I was very happy to see and very proud to see how much work they truly did accomplish between graduations. There was a lot of schools with projects like Well Branch Early College where we did just a tremendous amount of landscaping and bush hogging in such a short time. And you know, we had a very successful graduation season. So I'm very happy to report that. The last page are just images from that Hilton Head High School blitz. The free library box installation, that's a pretty cool project that they finished. And then that secondary set of pictures. You can just, I didn't want to give y'all all the pictures of what we found in the devices, but I wanted to kind of give you a little example of some of the things that are happening there.
Yep.
So the other thing I wanted to mention is, so for the month of June, we will continue to do inspections. And then we'll report, you know, once we get the committee's feedback, we'll report the June findings during the July committee meeting. And then the month of July, we will not be doing inspections because the month of July is really honing in on getting the construction projects done and also having custodial and maintenance do all of their summer projects as well. So.
Okay, Mr. Day, you have anything?
I'm happy to see like the fruition of the checklists and all that kind of stuff. The results of that. Great job. Appreciate it. I don't have anything else this time. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Dallas is off now.
He's on.
Okay. I think this is just fantastic. And this is exactly what we want. This is the way to go. I'm telling principals when I go to see them, I go see the principals in the spring and the fall. I'm just finished my spring visits now. I tell them, send pictures. If you got an issue, send pictures because that really helps scope the issue. And it's HVAC and plumbing, and when every principal, when I ask them what's going on, what their issues, it's HVAC and plumbing. And Broad River Elementary gave me an earful. I'm sorry. Gave me an earful. But they're having drainage problems in their cafeteria. And that causes problems, backups, and so on. And they have glitchy air conditioning. So they say they come and they fix it, and then they tell them that, you know, it's not gonna last forever, and it's on its last legs. So I told him, I said, well, I'll be watching on the 8% list to see if you're there. But this is absolutely outstanding, and I think both of these need to be presented to the full board on the 27th. Great.
Now we're gonna do these monthly, so you're gonna present every month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give the data out.
Okay.
Good initiative. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. We're now at 8% projects list. And I want to give Mr. Nate a little background here. Victor, what we've done in the past on the 8% list is we kept it started out at $20 million, and then we have a list based on criteria and priorities. And basically, when the time to figure out what we're going to spend our 8% project, which is primarily maintenance things that have to be done with our infrastructure. Now we have $800 million worth of insurable assets in this district. Normal corporations that have that kind of capital assets devote between 5 and 10% of that amount of their assets to preventative maintenance every year. And it depends on, what kind of a company you are, where you're located. We are a company that has a lot of human beings in a small area, which means we are hard on the infrastructure. We are in a location that's 50% water, salt water and salt marsh. That makes us much more difficult to maintain our infrastructure than if you're in Phoenix, Arizona. We have been spending $20 million a year, and that $20 million a year and 8% doesn't only go to maintenance. It goes to other things like technology, band uniforms, all kinds of other little things. That's why we get a huge referendum requirement to kind of catch up. Last year, this committee made a motion. Last year, the operations committee made a motion to move the recommendation to the full board for the 2024 8% capital projects list be as presented in an amount not to exceed $25 million of 8% capital funds. So we increased it from 20 to 25 million. We have a policy about the use of 8% funds. And the policy is that we will have in our reserve account for 8%, approximately 10% of our assessed value of all the infrastructure in the district. Well, 10% is $80 million. So that's saying that we should have at least $80 million of 8% borrowing authority available. And that's if we have a hurricane, whatever, and we have to write checks or get a quick loan, which we can do with 8% money by sending a 5-year bond. That a lot gives us that flexibility. When I came on the board, we had less than $30 million of credit because we'd used 8% money to build schools and do other things. We now have well over $80 million worth of 8% money available. So that's what policy is. Policy is to keep approximately $80 million in bonding assets. We now are getting ready for the referendum. And getting ready for the referendum, we have told our financial manager, our financial advisor, Brian Nurick, to figure out how we can fund this next referendum for $420 million without raising millage. We are at 36.3 mills right now. And Ryan thinks that we can fund this next referendum without raising millage. How does he do that? He does that by managing our indebtedness, our bonds. So for example, he will pay off some bonds earlier so that we can wipe out that cost of paying the principal and interest. And some bonds he extends. So instead of being a 3-year bond, he makes it a 4-year bond. It's a constant juggle because as we pay off bonds, that gives us, just like when you pay off, if you pay off your mortgage, you have money for other things. So right now, because he's preparing us to be ready in November, that we can say 36.3 is the bond, the millage we need to fund this. So it's no increase in millage. That's a very powerful statement when you're trying to sell a referendum. But if the bond passes, well, not if, when the bond passes, we won't be able to spend that money until we get all the contracts out and everything else. So we're talking probably into the spring, early summer of the following year. Now, why is that a problem? It's a problem because the way our millage is set, it's set based on payments that we have to in that fiscal year. That's interest and premium, interest and principal. So by getting us well ahead for this referendum, we need to spend some more money. We need to spend about another $5 million in debt. So that's why we're raising the 8% money from $25 million to $30 million. That's what that's what I'm talking to this committee to make a recommendation tomorrow night that we move to have the 8% money for and this is for the summer of 2025, right?
It would be 24.
24.
Summer of 20. We call it FY 2025.
Yeah, summer of 24. So this is kind of complex because it's a complex piece that you got to do to kind of juggle how much you are in debt by how much you have to pay, because frankly, that's what the county auditor will say, this is what your millage has got to be, because we see that you have to make the following payments in the next fiscal year. Okay. Now, if we didn't have, how many million dollars total do we have in 8% in the list?
May I ask Nick Fila on there? He's the one that has that list available. I don't have it. Nick, can you tell me do you know off the top of your head what the total amount of projects currently that we are tracking?
In 8% money?
In 8%?
Any specific year?
No,
For
just total.
For the next 10 years in our 10-year plan.
Give me just one moment and I can definitely get you that answer.
800, well, I don't know if it's 800.
Now, Victor, if we only had $25 million worth of stuff to have to fund, backlog requests and so on, then we would have to go ahead and say, no, we're going to have to drop the millage because we don't have to have as much we have to pay. But we do have more than $30 million worth of work to do. And I will find out what that number is.
Well, what you can say, why he's doing that, I mean, we started with having in our FY 25 or summer list, we started with 55 million. So we brought that down to 30.
Okay.
Nick, did you find it by any chance?
It is about 300 million.
So we have about $300
$300 million worth of stuff we gotta fix, or stuff that the
That's-
principals want to have done in their schools.
That's in the 10-year plan. It's
It's a
300.
10-year plan. So we're not even close to being able to take care of all our needs with the $30 million. So that's the problem. And I've already gotten some pushback from a board member saying, oh, well, we went up from 20 to 25. Now you're going up to the $30 million. And oh dear, let's worry about that. We have $55 million that we've identified right away that we could spend. And we're going to go to $30 million. And I'm going, if this committee approved, I'm going to make a motion that we recommend to the full board a FY 25 8% capital projects executive summary as presented in the amount not to exceed $30 million using 8% capital funds. So what do you, I know this is complex. What do you think? Victor?
If you could just refresh, I thought I understood, but I don't know that I understand why you're saying that in order to manage debt, we have to spend 5 million more. We have to go up from 25 to 30 million. Please explain that again.
Okay. The way our millage, here's the state law. The state law says that districts will not fail to pay their indebtedness. Okay, you must pay for any monies that you borrow. And when we borrow by selling bonds. Okay. And if you do, the state will bail you out. Okay, that's why we have the kind of bond rating that we have from the rating organizations, is because our bonds are guaranteed by the state. Now, the state says, hey, we're not interested in bailing you out. So we're saying to you districts, you figure out what your payments are so that you take care of any debt that you have is paid for. So we have two types of debt. We have referendum debt, which are 30-year bonds, and we have 8% debt, which are 5-year bonds. Okay. So those bonds come to maturity at different times. And some of them are 5-year bonds, and sometimes Brian will say, well, we can pay that off early. So we pay it off. We try to pay off our high interest bonds first, for example. So we have to show the auditor that we've got the millage to pay for all the payments that we need, that we have obligated next year. And right now, if we don't raise up this 8% money to $30 million, we won't have enough. So what the auditor is going to say is, okay, instead of 36.3, we're going to have your millage rate be 34.3, let's just say, down 2 mils. Okay. Now, in November, we're going to go out and say, we're not raising your millage. Well, what's the millage? It's 34.3, because that's what the auditor says, because that's what we are required to pay. But when we do have the referendum passed, we're going to have to go back up to 36.3 mils. And that doesn't allow us to say, as we're marketing our referendum, no millage increase. You see, the way the financial institutions look at us and for our bond rating, they look at stability. They do not want to see millage rate, it goes up and down, up and down, up and down every year. What they want to see is proper financial debt management where the millage stays the same. When they see that, that says you are managing your debt. That's why it's important that we've kept our millage at 36.3 now for the last 4.5 years. And we want to keep it that way. So that's why we need to borrow an additional $5 million to take care of. It's really kind of a good thing because it takes care of more projects than we would if we only could spend $25 million. I know this is complex, but did I lose you on that?
It's not complex at all. And no, you didn't lose me. I don't know that necessarily that I agree with you, because what you're telling me is that we have to keep our spending up so that we keep the millage up, so that we have the millage for the debt management. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good reason. It is a good reason because we have lots of projects. 300 million over 10 years is what I understand. If we're spending 30 million every 10 years, then we're going to meet our 300 million over 10-year project. I get that. So that's one arm of it that I see. The other arm of it is we have to keep our spending high in order to rate the higher millage so that we don't drop and raise our millage again. I get it.
If I can add one more thing, I think the anticipation is next year will drop back down to 25. That extra spending is only needed this year prior to the referendum. So tell me if I'm wrong.
That's right.
But the plan that the bond that Brian Nurick has us spending 25 million. It just so happens that this year, if we don't go to 30, we'd have to, and we go to 25, just the way the money comes in, we'll have to drop the millage. And so when we pass the referendum, we'll have to raise it back up to get where we are right now. So if we bump ourselves just this one year from 25 to 30, we can maintain the millage.
So for the taxpayer, it means it's stable. Rather than giving them a couple dollars a month less for 1 year and then have to raise it up $4 or $5 the next year, it's just stable. And so we're not, we're not throwing the money away. We're not spending $5 million to buy the superintendent Ferraris. We're using that $5 million from the list of priorities that we have. We're just adding another $5 million.
Oh, I get it. I understand. I don't know that there may not be a majority vote on the board that's going to support this, but I understand all the reasoning behind it. And sure, as a committee, I don't have a problem taking this to the full board, but I don't know that enough people on the full board are going to. I'm sure there's going to be some heated debate on the board about an extra 5 million just so we cannot move millage. But there's going to, on the other side, there's going to be, proponents of, there's plenty of things around the district that need to get done and the money to be well spent, I'm sure. But sure. I mean, I'll play ball for now. I don't see any reason not to yet. But we'll see.
All right. So we'll go ahead and make a motion, and I'll
Would you like us to go through the project?
pardon me?
Would you like us to go through the project? I was going to have Nate go through just how this is created. So.
I'd rather than go through, we could spend a lot of time doing that. I think that should be something that we talk about in the next meeting, because we're not getting ready to pick the projects. We don't have to pick them right now. What we have to pick right now is the amount, because we have to give Brian Nurick, he's going to start selling bonds for this. We get that money in advance so we can start work on things, and even that's not right away. But I really need to have the 36.3 locked in. That is absolutely critical in our planning for this referendum. So
I would say we.
Yeah,
sure. So I would say we, but yes, I agree.
Okay. So a motion would be. I move that the Operations Committee recommend to the full board the FY 2025 8% capital projects executive summary to be presented. It has not as presented. We're not going to present it. We're going to be to be presented in an amount not to exceed $25 million using 8% capital funds.
Didn't you just say 30 million?
I mean, 30 million, I'm sorry. I'm reading off last one, 30 million.
I'm gonna write that down.
So I moved it. Will you second it?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay. And we'll get it up so you can see it.
So it'll be FY 2025,
I have
8%.
$30 million.
$35 million or 30.
30.
Can somebody explain to me why it's FY 25?
So it's, that work is the summer of 24, and that's the start of the FY 25 school year is kind of how.
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year, yes. So that's that's the start of the fiscal year for the, which would be the 25-26 school year. No, 24-25, sorry, before 25 school year, it's the summer of 24. We call that FY 25.
Earl is back on.
I mean,
Earl's back on as well.
Rose back on. Okay.
It is confusing. I always just remember you subtract 1 from the fiscal year, and that's
the year starting to work.
that's the year that starts.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nothing heard, motion carries unanimously. And we will bring this up and tomorrow night, and we'll see what happens. It is complex, but maybe Tanya can explain it better than I do.
I definitely believe that she needs to be in this conversation.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. Brian Nurick would be in the conversation as well, but he's on a cruise ship in Alaska. So he won't be available. Okay, next item is the sale of Cherokee Road property.
Okay. So, first, let me start by saying that we recently went through the sale of the Defusky Island property, and that was a different process than we're going to have to take for this Cherokee Road property. The reason being is that we purchased the Cherokee Road property after 1952, where the Defusky property was donated to the school district prior to 1952. That 1952 date is the date that any sale after that has to be approved by the State Department of Ed. So any sale we do of this property is going to have to go through them. And one of the items that they require is having a resolution passed that states that the Board of Education is interested in selling that property. And they have the format of a draft resolution, and that is, you'll see in your packet as well. There is a party currently interested in buying this parcel, and that's why we're going through these steps. But we're not talking about that tonight. We're getting the first step out of the way We're having the appraisal done on the property so we can know what the appraised price of it is. And so with that, you see the motion there. Well, let me explain where this property is. Obviously, if you look on the map, it's on Cherokee Road. So it's over there right near the Habersham, right off Joe Frazier Road. You'll see it's highlighted in red on the map that you're looking at. I don't know why there's a highlighted section down in that bottom right corner. Actually, it's the one with the long driveway and kind of triangular parcel. And the total amount is 19.5 acres. You also see on there, I have the taxable value that's been placed on the property. And we purchased this, I forgot the year that we purchased this property.
Early 2000.
Yeah, back there.
2000.
Didn't I have it on here?
Is that down there?
February 2000. And you'll see, at least on the tax map, the property has been losing value recent years. And part of that is because it's located in the AQ zone. But we're getting a appraisal, so we'll know what it's worth.
What's
AQ zone, it has to do with the area that the flight pattern for the air station. I don't remember what the actual.
There's different layers of it, but it's
I don't know.
about noise and.
Yeah.
and noise, yeah.
Noise.
Noise.
So you'll see there, I have the motion that I have it suggested. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
So will we miss this?
Did you put the map up again, please?
It's well, let me just say this property is already listed for sale on our website, and we've had it up there for years, actually. And we have no plan to use this property, and specifically since it's in the AQ zone, they wouldn't let us build on this piece of property. So it kind of isn't a question on, it's a formality in my mind, but we need the board to make this resolution so that I can give the date that that resolution was made to the State Department. So when they approve any sale or consideration of sale, that piece has been done.
Now, is that Habersham?
Yes.
To the left.
Well, you know, if they allow Habersham to be built there,
I don't know. all-
why wouldn't they allow any building? in this
It's,
place?
well, it currently is in that. So they may have had it built before they changed the zone, or they widened it. I don't know the answer
They
to
won't let
that.
us build a new school over there after Habersham was built.
Yeah, I mean, I
Because we
think
bought
they
the
built.
property to build a school over and we could not.
And I
think
think
they
it's
built-
about numbers of people in the place at one time. Whereas Habersham, you might have, you know,
Oh, I
only
see.
three people in
The
it.
density of people.
It's the density.
Uh-huh.
and
But it's so close to
congregation.
Habersham.
Okay. Mr. Nay, do you have any questions?
That's great.
Oh.
No, I don't. I guess the only thing that I would be concerned about is maybe the rezoning of the AQ like zone, or if they plan on moving or adjusting that zone anytime soon.
They did, it got bigger when we brought in the
At 35.
F-35, so that zone has already changed and it got bigger. I would not anticipate it, I can't speak for the
Well,
military.
unless
But, yeah.
let's stay in the
That's
squadron.
That's the squadron, that's
Squadron
35.
Yeah,
And let me just say this, by making this motion, passing this resolution, you're under no obligation to sell it.
right.
You're just saying you have the intent and would like to sell it and it's out there. You're willing to take offers for the sale of it, is basically what you're saying.
Didn't you say that it was already posted for sale?
Oh, yeah, we've had it posted, but even posted, you don't have to accept any offer. Like if I brought you an offer for $1, I mean, there's no requirement that you have to sell it. It's a piece of property we don't have in our master plan a use for, and that's why it's been put up for sale, or it's been advertised for sale. Any offer will be, I guess, well, all I'm trying to say, any offer will be brought to you and you will review that offer. And at that time, you can say yes or no. There's no obligation to say yes.
Who's responsible for controlling the security of the property?
Ooh, that's us, and that's where I can hear Colonel Guyer saying the concern is the liability of owning the property. And actually, we saw recently that people were dumping dirt on the property.
Right.
And so we've talked about sending out a letter for them to stop that activity.
Yeah,
We-
well, I mean, I find it odd that, for a no-fly zone, that the Marine Corps is not contributing to at least partially to some of the security. But I understand the risk, which is why I have, if we're not using it, then it's just a liability. We're just paying taxes on it, and we have to cover anything that happens on the property, liability wise. So I'm obviously not opposed to selling it, especially if we have no intention for using it. 19 acres, I don't know. It seems kind of paltry for something. Maybe you can put a small school on it or something, but obviously it's in the flight zone, so we can't develop it anyways. Yeah, I'm good with it.
I think that, now, you say somebody was interested in it?
Yes, we have somebody that.
Somebody that is interested in purchasing.
Yeah, and they've actually already made us an offer. Once y'all pass this and we get the appraisal, I will bring that offer and that information in executive session to the board for consideration.
Yeah, we don't have to pay any taxes on us, Victor, but if somebody puts a drug lab out there or something, or burns it down, I don't know what kind of vegetation's on it, causes a fire that spreads to Habersham and wipes out Habersham, heaven forbid.
Runs a motorcycle out there
Right.
and hurts themselves.
Yeah, there's all kinds of liability issues if it's
We do
not an
have to
asset.
pay stormwater fees, which that's the.
Yeah, it might be in
We don't, Louis' point is, yeah, we don't pay taxes, but we do have to pay stormwater.
stormwater, we do.
Which I'm.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Okay,
$105.
It's $105 payment. Oh, there's one more.
so would you put up the motion?
I guess my confusion is, if it's already been posted for sale and we already have an offer on it, then why do we need a resolution to offer to sell it?
Because this piece of property the state has to approve the sale. So even if once y'all accept it, then we have to send all that information to the state, and the state Board of Education has to approve what y'all have approved. And
So
this
you're
is one of
saying
their.
that the resolution is required by the state in order to
Correct.
approve the sale?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that made it easy. All right, thanks.
I think Robin's gonna put the motion up. Would you mind reading the motion?
I move that the Operations Committee recommend to the board the approval of a resolution declaring the Cherokee Road property for sale due to the property being unnecessary for educational and administrative purposes according to the district's facilities plans.
I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, so we'll have that motion brought up. All right. Last item, update on indoor air quality at Pritchardville Mobiles.
Well, this was an item that Mr. Smith wanted us to talk about.
Yep.
He's not here, but so I will go very quickly through this. I have provided for you all the testing information from the tests that have occurred. What you'll find in your packet is starting back, you'll see a report from December 5th, 2022. This is where we conducted testing of the 5th grade modular. So get that in your head, 5th grade. There we did some testing of our own in September, actually September 15th and 22, where we found elevated fungal spore concentrations. And then finding that, we invited Terracon to conduct their own testing. They conducted testing on September 27th of 2022. And then again on October 5th of 2022. September 27th did not notice anything just some minor elevated numbers, but the October 5th one did have some elevated concentrations that were concerning. You know, at that time, we closed down the 5th grade modular. Those kids were moved back into the building. We renovated that modular and found where there had been a separation. Actually, I believe that one was even between the air conditioning unit and the wall, where water had gotten into all the insulation. All that was renovated, redone. We had all the contamination removed. And what you see as far as the next sampling is February 24th, when we did testing of both the 5th grade and 4th grade modular. That 5th grade testing was to verify that there were no longer elevated fungal levels in the 5th grade modular. It passed. So after that, kids were moved back into the 5th grade modular. We did test the 4th grade modular because quite frankly, the school asked for it. They said, since you tested, we had issues in the 5th grade modular, please go ahead and test the 4th grade modular while you were there. We've not had any problems with the 4th grade modular since it was been installed. And those tests came back with no signs of any elevated fungal spores. So then there continue to be concerns raised about the 4th grade modular from a couple parents. And by the way, all these results were supplied to the school. We met with all the parents when all this occurred to let them know what was happening and what we were doing about it. And we provided them the results of all the testing before we moved them back into the modular. Once we received concerns these are from some parents. Now, we did investigate it. We saw no evidence, and we, after interviewing the teachers and others, there were not concerns from those individuals, but since we did have some that had some concern, we continued to test. Those tests came back with no signs of any kind of fungal concentrations that were elevated or of concern. And so we have not done anything else about it. There were some Facebook postings and others of a couple concerned parents about that, but we have not been able to find, or even through our own visual of walking through and smelling, not noticed anything of concern, no damp spots, no any indication, and all of our tests have come back with no indication of problems. So that is what we've done with the Pritchardville mobiles. Any questions?
Mr. Nay?
No questions, other than where's the person that wanted it? Appreciate your work, and I appreciate you briefing us. Thank you.
Thank you. I echo that. We have a problem with acceptance of mobiles in general. And that is not going to go away as long as we have mobiles. They are not as they don't, because parents don't consider them as safe. They don't consider them as anything more than a trailer. And they're much more expensive than any trailer and much better built than any trailer, but they are still, as far as they're concerned, a mobile, and they don't like it. So as long as we give them the information,
Yes, sir.
that's all we can do. So any future topics? Mr. Nay, do you have any future topics?
None, thank you.
I have none. Did you have some
Well,
future
the
topics?
8% or we're going to come. I mean, if you have those lists, you want us to come back.
Let's come back after we get the millage
Question. Okay. We're ready whenever y'all are.
Okay.
Want us back.
Next meeting in July.
Been meeting on the second Tuesday, which is when there will be a board meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
For the month of July, we only have one board meeting.
Yeah.
So that will be on the 11th.
Okay, thank you.
So if you would like to meet on 10th or the 12th.
What
Both
about-
will be out on the 13th, so.
What about the first Tuesday, or does it still need to be on a?
Tuesday is 4th of July.
Oh.
Yeah, that won't work.
I do not want to do that. No, no, ma'am.
So our board meeting is on the 11th.
The 11th of July.
That's the only one.
That's the only one that we have currently.
So 6 or 7 or 10 is 6, 7 or 10.
What days are those? That would be-
Thursday, Friday, Monday.
Any of those days would be fine for me.
How about
Although
June
we're not
6th?
working on the Fridays.
We would be because we're
Oh,
all on that
on the 4th,
Monday.
okay.
the 4th.
Yep.
So Friday is a work, so that
Friday is
is.
workday. Mr. Day, how about you? You got any particulars on either 6, 7 or 10 July?
I work the evening of the 6th and I have plans for the 7th, but the 10th would be best for me if it's okay with everybody else.
That works for me.
Be fine with me?
Let's do 10th at 5 o'clock.
Sounds good. Thank you.
If no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And I second, and thank you very much for everybody. Appreciate everybody coming.